So thrilled that you're here, but this is not going to be the typical show talking about mind games like gaslighting, criticism, and all the things that we've come to associate with narcissistic abuse. This is going to control how narcissists control us inadvertently. And I want to warn you that this is going to maybe leave you a little bothered by the end of this, because we're going to get into the tactics that happen unconsciously, subconsciously, when you meet somebody who's either psychopathic or narcissistic, somebody who's very sophisticated at manipulating other people, at being extremely exploitative. So I'm just thrilled that you're joining me here today. I'm Dr. Carrie McAvoy. I am a retired psychologist. I have over 25 years experience as a clinician in the office. And one of the things, if you've known me for any bit of time, that you know that it really irritates me is when we start to attack victims for getting in trouble in these relationships. Because the problem is that we fail to understand that they're in these relationships because they have met a sophisticated enough predator. So I would love to get into what happens behind the scenes when you meet a toxic individual, how mind control actually happens, so that you're more informed about why we should put the attention on the predators, on the perpetrators, and not so much on the victims. So I'm very thrilled that you guys are here today. So I want to talk a little bit about neuro-linguistic programming. We're going to get into hypnosis and the power of suggestion. So many of us, we don't even know that we're stuck in a toxic relationship. Usually it happens, you realize it kind of over time, incrementally, that something really wrong is happening, that you're in a relationship that you can't get out of. And it's sort of like a chipping away at your sense of autonomy. You start to have this sense that that you can't really trust yourself. You feel extremely confused, that you start to feel like that you start to second guess what you're thinking and feeling, and that when you attend to your own needs, you start to feel guilty for that. And you no longer know that you're making sound decisions. You start to get very, very hesitant that your decision making is flawed in somehow. And you find yourself vacillating between these big emotional swings, between hope and then despair, between love and fear, between guilt and anger, and you feel deeply confused when you're in these relationships. But I want to talk about why this happens, what happens on the back end that traps victims and get them stuck in these relationships, how their inner compass gets eroded over the slow, insidious manipulation. Because when we meet people who are really good at this, they're very sophisticated at this, they know how to entangle you and to manipulate you and leave you feeling off balance and confused. So I want to get into what actually happens on the back end if you stick around. And if you stay until the last, we usually go for 1 hour, and if you stay for the last 15 minutes, I'd be happy to take your questions. And I'm so thrilled that you're joining me here today. Be sure to maybe share this with somebody right now that you know is struggling, or maybe this is your first time meeting me and hearing this live. So I'm excited that you're here today learning about this, because if you're struggling with a toxic relationship, I want to know that it's not your fault, that you have met somebody who's, we don't sit and look at Bernie Madoff's victims and say, how do these smart people who are in sophisticated investments end up thinking this guy was going to make them money? They trusted him. Why did they trust him? Because he was very good at what he did. He was very good at pulling people in and selling them a story and convincing them through the art of persuasion that he had a really great investment idea and that he was a trustworthy person. And if you're stuck right now in a toxic relationship, you've met somebody similar who's made you feel like you can trust them in some profound way. So first of all, I want to let you know I'm from Mexico. So if anyone of you has read the book Love You More and you wondered about what it looked like, well, this is where we lived for a period of time. This was a period of time where I was getting incrementally ill and starting to do really crazy stuff like stalking him and going through his phone and doing all sorts of stuff we would actually hear in this apartment when this happened. So if you've ever wondered what it looked like, this is what the setting looked like. And I'm so glad that you joined me. So I want to first tell you about how people can subtly and indirectly influence you. And one of the best people who really learned the art of it is Dr. Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson. He revolutionized hypnotherapy to something very different. He was extremely sophisticated. And if I remember the story correctly, Milton Erickson contracted polio as a young boy and was bound to the bed. And in his confinement and boredom, he started to notice that he could observe other people's respiration, and he could observe the pulse on their, like, for example, at their wrist or at their neck. And he started to notice that if he used a cadence, a pitch, or a pace of speaking and used certain words, that he could start to have influence over these people. And he found that the use of metaphor and storytelling, along with pacing, mirroring, even his posture, he could gain access to that person's subconsciousness. And he could build trust, fast rapport with this individual that maybe wasn't earned or deserved. And he started to do this as a way to use it in treatment. In fact, in Mexico, ironically, there are big, if you go to therapy here and you see a therapist who's been trained in Mexico, chances are you've met somebody who's been trained in Ericksonian type of therapy, because it's a big form of treatment in this area. So, by the way, for those of you who are on TikTok, would you please share or like this video? I'm having a hard time getting out because nobody's tapping the screen. So if you would mind helping tap the screen. And I don't know how you guys do that on YouTube. I rarely attend lives on YouTube. So if there's a way for you guys to invite somebody, share this, like it, or maybe you've never followed me before, or never subscribed before to me, I'd really love to have you do that. So let's go back to Milton Erickson. So he found out that he had this ability to create compulsions in people that would influence them to do things. So one of the creepiest stories about Milton Erickson was that he met a young man who was really cocky at one of his lectures, who claimed that the idea of hypnosis was totally ridiculous and could never be done without one person's consent. And that everybody had a choice. And isn't that what we think about victims? We think about victims have a choice. And so Milton challenged him. And I mean, actually, Milton didn't challenge him directly, but he did challenge him. He smiled at the guy and held out his hand for a handshake. And as the man reached for it, Milton Erickson interrupted the handshake by suddenly shifting his grip and lightly touching his fingers in a confusing, unexpected pattern on the man's hand. And this breach of the protocol created a window of opportunity, a window of disorientation. And it was a hypnotic opening for Erickson. And while Erickson noticed that person's pause, he said to this man, "That's right, you can go deeper. Just stand there, comfortable and still, until you realize you've already begun to relax." And the man froze. And his arms stayed midair and his eyes blinked slowly, and he entered a trance right there in the middle of that casual interaction after telling Milton Erickson that it was impossible to be hypnotized without your consent. And Erickson continued to talk quietly to the guy until he brought him out of the trance, and then Erickson smiled at him and walked away. So what this shows was that you can hypnotize somebody. You can pull them in under the influence without their awareness through this pattern interruption style, through nonverbal pacing and leading, by using embedded commands and indirect language. So let's talk about why this works and how narcissists use this same technique. So whether you recognized it or not, when you met a narcissist, they mirrored your language, they mirrored your values and their emotions, and it made you feel like you met a version of yourself. You had this incredible sense of somebody who understood you. They had this pacing, this false sense of rapport with you that you've never, like you met your soulmate. I know that before I met my ex, I thought that the idea of soulmate was ridiculous, but it wasn't until I was in that relationship that I discovered that I thought it existed. I thought there was such a thing as soulmate. By the way, for those of you who are on TikTok and lagging, it's because I'm in Mexico and my connection here is not very strong. So if you actually go over to YouTube or Facebook for my page at Carrie McAvoy PhD, Carrie McAvoy PhD, you'll find probably a better stream because that's actually hardwired in. So I'm trying to use a better connection for that. So I'm really sorry that it's lagging. I'm on the Wi-Fi, but it's just not a strong connection in Mexico. But thank you so much, guys, for following me. And I've noticed on TikTok, nobody's still tapping that screen. You'd really do me a big favor if you tap the screen. I'd really appreciate it. So just like Erickson did a pattern interruption, and he used mirroring and mimicking of this person, that narcissists do the same thing. Now, I know the next question I always get is, do they know that they're doing it? I don't always know that they know that they're doing it, but I know that they're good at recognizing what works. You know, if their behavior leads to the reward they want, then they're going to do that behavior more often. It just creates a natural built-in reward system. You know, if you want to have somebody be really nice to you and you speak nicely to them and they're really nice to you, you're going to do it more often. We just learn from those types of experiences. The other thing noticed in that story with Milton Erickson, that he offered covert suggestions. Like he said to this person, you can relax now, just go deeper. He offered some suggestions. And when the narcissist met you or a psychopath meets you, they also offer covert suggestions just like that. They'll say things like, you've always been just so sensitive, or I can tell what a deep thinker you are, or you love big. They'll make some big comment. Now, here's what my ex said to me when he first met me. He was setting me up to go along, and he anticipated that I would be obstinate. So he said, you're not going to be one of those women who are stubborn, are you? And that made me think, no, I don't want to be like that. So that was a covert suggestion for me to move away from that and encourage compliance with me instead of me being kind of strong-willed or sticking up for myself or having boundaries. The other thing that they do, just like Erickson did, was they use confusion and contradiction to destabilize your thinking. Now, in this story, Milton Erickson used this confusing pattern. Like, he didn't shake the guy's hand. When he went to reach for it, he actually tapped the man's hand, throwing this guy completely off. And that threw the guy off, which kind of opened this person up for suggestion. And narcissists and psychopaths will do something similar. They'll do something that's, in fact, we're going to break down a conversation. So I'm going to actually show you how they do this, but they'll do something that is, you don't expect it, that you have a script in your head, and they don't go with the script, they do something else. And that really like throws you off when that happens, and it opens you up for suggestion when that happens. And then they exploit your emotional states, like your fear or guilt, or even your desire for love. When you're really open to that, they'll then reach in at that moment and use that openness, that suggestibility as a way to use it against you in order to alter your consciousness and get you ready for change. So be careful when you meet someone. We're going to talk about what to do about this so that you can help reduce your risk, this kind of persuasion and influence. Because, you know, what they do, these people are very good at tracking your manipulations. You may not have realized it, but they're watching for things that upset you. You know, they may have tried lots of things. For example, I knew that my ex's girlfriend loves to cook, and I have a feeling he's probably critiquing her cooking and making her feel very insecure about that. Whereas he tended to be more, hit me more at my sense of self, like my self-worth and how I felt about myself and my body, because he knew that was where my insecurities were. So they're really tracking your vulnerabilities. And they're trying to make you think they're a lot like them so that you trust them, so that you think they're safe. For example, how many of us have tried to tell those that we know and love that our partner or our ex or somebody that we know is dangerous, and because that person's nice to the other people, they're like, no, that's not true. So they mirror they mirror their society's values. They'll mirror your values in order to sort of let your guard down and make you think this is a safe person when they're really not that safe. And they'll insert suggestions as if it's a truth or a self-discovery. And without you knowing it, they're redefining your reality in order to lower your resistance. So why does this work? It works because they're using emotionally charged moments with repeated suggestions over time. And anytime we hear something repeated, like a repeated belief, it slowly turns into a truth. Like, think about the time that you've heard somebody say, well, I read in a book, blah, 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 and they'll say something. And you'll think, oh, that must have credibility because somebody wrote it in a book. Well, no, it may not have any credibility, but somehow we associate, like, as if something has more authority when it's repeated over and over and over, or when we comes from an expert, or like the doctors say, and then they'll say something, and we think, well, it must be true. Well, why must it be true? Because a doctor says that? But notice how they'll use things like that, repeated suggestions over time, to turn a belief into a truth. And then they'll attach an idea of safety or threat. They'll attach some ideas to safety or threat, like there's something that overrides your logic, and the reason you don't want to do that because you get afraid. So let's break it down and look at how this works. I'm going to give you, this is kind of how it happens to us in conversations. So you bring up an issue calmly. You'll say something like, you know what, that really hurt when you didn't respond to my messages for hours. And instead of what you expect, think about, what would you expect if you heard that comment? You'd expect them to say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got really busy and I lost track of the time. Okay, that's what we expect to hear. But this is how they do a pattern interruption. They'll say something like, wow, I guess I can't do anything right. Do you know how much pressure that puts me under? And now you're disoriented because that's not the response you expected. You thought you were going to get a discussion, an explanation, but instead they've turned it, they shifted it, they turned it into blame, shame, or some form of retreat. And then before you can recover and get back on your feet and kind of follow what you're going to do, then they say something like this. They'll say a suggestion. You're awfully sensitive. That's why your past relationships failed. And you're thinking, what? My sensitivity about being aware of you being gone for hours is why my relationships fail? And that throws you off so much that you freeze, and then you start to ask yourself, well, is it me? Am I the problem? So notice what happens. There's confusion that disarmed you. There was a suggestion that caused doubt. And then the repetition of this theme caused belief. And the emotional tension that you're feeling, like you're stirred up now, shook up, that kept you hooked. So this is how it happens this is how the manipulation happens. So what I want to do is I'm going to read you an excerpt of Love You More. It's a short excerpt about how I got manipulated, because what essentially happened was he planted an idea in my head that really threw me off, and he used all these things in this method. So I want to read this to you, and I'm going to watch for your comments. I want you to notice where you see the confusion happening, how the pattern interruption was. I want you to know what the suggestion was. How did he kind of cement something as a belief, and how did he keep me hooked? So you're going to be the psychologist, and you're going to listen to the story and tell me how he did this whole thing that worked, that made me, it kind of hooked me and drew me in a more powerful way. Okay, so here's the excerpt from my book called Love You More. This actually really happened. By the way, I talk about the fact that I wear wigs. So here's the excerpt. Ready to be listening for those things? All right. Last night, in anticipation of spending the weekend together, I texted to warn Caesar about my wig. I noticed there was something different about you in your photos. Have you been sick, gorgeous? With trembling fingers, I typed, no, nothing like that. I just want you to know I'll be wearing a nightcap. Brad, my late husband, disliked discussing my baldness. He'd squirm and say, you look beautiful, that's all that matters, he'd say before changing the subject. For a long time, I've dreamed of being found out after a woman's beauty was her hair. Letting Caesar see me bald was something out of the question. I twisted the corner of the duvet into a tight knot while I waited, and a notification appeared of an incoming email. Taking a deep breath, I opened it. In the email, Caesar writes, Sweetie, I'm tired of playing games. We need to be honest about everything, even our appearance. Unless you can be open with me, I don't think I can move forward. What? My eyes flew wide open. Be open with him? Go bareheaded? He must not understand what he's asking. I couldn't even stomach looking at myself. Gulping for air, I dialed his number. What's the meaning of this? Tears burned. There was a long pause. He said, I think the letter says it best. We're off. And then I said, we're off. If I don't let you see me without a wig or a nightcap, I could barely speak these words. He exhaled. I'm too tired to pursue a relationship if this isn't real. You'll have to decide if you're up for this level of honesty. I don't know what to say. Tears dripped. Only you can decide if this is what you want, he says wearily as he ended the call. Had this been the kind of vulnerability I've been longing for? I sobbed harder. So let's take that story apart and look at how he used this post-hypnotic or this persuasive language and use of language to disarm me, to create confusion, to use pattern interruption. All right, so any guesses or where you saw the pattern interruption? I'm reading your comments. I want to see what you guys think. Where was the pattern interruption in that story? So where I saw it, when I was thinking about this under Milton Erickson's example, I told him that I was going to wear a nightcap, and he shifted it and said, have you been sick? Which kind of surprised me. That wasn't the angle I took. Then that second pattern interruption that happened was, instead of texting, we were texting, he wrote an email and said, I'm tired of playing games. And I didn't know, and he said, we have to be honest about everything. And here we're just, we're new in dating. Was that, see how that threw me? Was that dishonesty that I didn't outright come out and say this about me? How many times have you delayed what you share about something because you're waiting until you get to know a person better? But he called that dishonesty. And then he said, unless you can be open with me, I don't think I can move forward. So remember how they'll do something that kind of is a retreat, or it creates guilt, or it creates fear. So he's creating fear, and he's threatening detachment. So what do? Now if you remember what happens in these relationships, it creates confusion, which is disarming, and then it plants a seed of doubt. So what do? I call him, and I say, what? Why did you send this letter? And then he says, he pattern interrupts. He says, I think the letter says it best. So he's not going to talk to me about it. He's going to defer to that letter. The letter says it best. And then he says that my honesty, he's actually calling it dishonesty, but my honesty, he said, I will have to decide if I want a relationship, only as long as I then follow his rules. And because I'm not even seeing it that I'm not following his rules. So now I'm completely disarmed. The emotional tension is super high. And I'm now feeling like there's something must be wrong. I must have done something wrong. And then he puts the whole onus of the relationship. It's going to live or die based on the willingness to comply. And he says, you'll have to decide if this is the kind of level of honesty you're up for. And at that point, I get off the phone and I start to sob. So that's an example of how there's a lot of pattern interruptions in this story, and there's also a lot of shifting of the narrative, and notice he's repeating something, honesty, 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 over and over and over, as if my forthrightness, I'm being forthright. I don't know this guy very long, and I'm telling him something very vulnerable, something that I normally don't tell people, and I'm being forthright, but he's hitting it over and over. I haven't been honest. I haven't been honest. I haven't been honest. And that if I'm not honest, I'm not going to have a relationship with him. That's how they get into your head, and they shift the way that you think, shift the way you experience yourself, and make you feel like you're the problem, and it also increases the emotional connection so that you're afraid of losing them. It binds you more intensely because you're afraid of losing them. I know I've been getting a lot of comments about how bad the connection is on TikTok. It's bad because I'm in Mexico and I do not have a strong Wi-Fi connection, and unfortunately it's just not good. So if you want a better connection, I don't know how strong the video part is over on Facebook or YouTube, but I've heard that audio is strong. So if you would like a better connection, you'll have to unfortunately leave TikTok and go elsewhere. So I really apologize, but I just don't have this is, in my house I have 1G down and 1G up, and here I don't. I think it's 30, like 30 megabytes. So it's just very much different. So how many of you guys have watched the movie Inception? Have you watched the movie Inception? And it was Christopher Nolan's movie, and he had a question. The movie asked this question: can you plant an idea in somebody else's brain? That was the big question of the movie. Interestingly enough, they conclude by the end of the movie that yes, you can. This is what you're seeing happen. When you meet somebody who's a narcissist or a psychopath, sociopath, you're meeting someone who's learned how to plant an idea in your brain and to be able to manipulate you into thinking ultimately that the reason the relationship is going bad is because you're not trying hard enough. Because you're the problem, because you're the one that's been bringing issues up. You have met somebody who's really, really good at identifying how to make you feel responsible for their language. And that's what this excerpt was an example of. And I know a lot of you said, he's really awful, I can't believe that happened to you, how horrible. But I want you not to focus so much on what happened to me. I want you to focus on how it happened. Because that's how it's happening to you. If you're in a toxic relationship, you're experiencing that same type of manipulation. And I would love you to get to the place that by the end of today's live, that you start to look for these patterns, that you look for the pattern interruption, that you look for them to plant a suggestion that creates doubt in you. I want you to look for the way they repeat something to turn it from a belief to a fact, and how they create such an emotional instability inside of you, such high emotional tension, that you start to become invested and you want it to work out, that you get hooked in really, really powerfully. I want you to start to watch for that so that you don't get persuaded. Because here's what happens. Influence, all of us often do influence. We try to sway someone. Don't you want to go there? I really want their kind of blah, 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 whatever it is that you want to eat over there or what you want to do over there. Then we start to push harder. That's called persuasion. And if we even push harder where there's lack of consent and a lack of awareness, there's mind control. And what we experience in these relationships is a form of mind control, which is why it's so hard to get out of these relationships. Because about the time that you start to think about stepping away, first of all, they pick up that you're thinking about stepping away. Then they start to suggest that they've worked hard, that they're invested, that they've loved you so much, that they want to keep you guys together as a family. What they're doing is, by the way, these are suggestions to create doubt inside of you, to make you doubt your decision, and to make it feel like it's a fact that this person is invested when they've not done anything to suggest that they're invested. They've been hurting you and lying to you and deceiving you and betraying you. But they don't want you to leave on your terms. They only want things to happen on their terms. So I want you to be really, really aware of when this is happening, when you're being actually controlled through the mind by somebody else. So watch for the pattern interruption. Watch for somebody who, like for example, if you ask a question, instead of answering the question, they say something that's jarring or surprising, that causes your brain to stall. And when you're disoriented because your brain is stalling because it's an unexpected direction, they'll offer a solution or suggestion. Next, that's, by the way, putting you into a soft trance. I hate to tell you that, but it's doing that. So the next thing that they do is they'll then assume a close. Like, you're going to start to see results, and I'm really glad you said yes today. That's what a salesman would do. They'll do something, they'll say, I really, really worked hard, and I know that you want us to stay together. See, they're suggesting an outcome that you want. I know that you want to keep the family together. I know that you want our kids to have both parents in their lives. They'll say something that's very hard for you to say no to, because it's true. It's universally true. And that makes you feel like the decision's already been made when it actually hasn't. It tricks you. It forces you into a direction that you don't want to move it. Because think about it. If you're saying, I want a divorce, and then they say, but you really want them to have both parents in their life, and you're like, yeah, I do. Then you're thinking, well, that means I shouldn't get this divorce. You see how it persuades you away from the very thing that you want to do? It's acting like the decision's already been made and that you need to go in that direction. And then they'll do something that creates a sense of scarcity or is a sense of authority or some kind of social proof. Like they'll say, well, you know, the therapist has told us that Johnny needs both parents involved. And you're like, well, yeah, that expert did tell us that, and I am paying them for their opinion. And next thing you know, you're like, okay, maybe this is really a bad idea. See how you're being persuaded away? You're being pushed into a certain direction? And that creates for you an ethical dilemma. Now you're hesitant. Now you're not for sure this is the right decision. Now you're wondering that maybe you haven't given them the best chance in the world. And so now you're like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe this is not as bad as I think it is. I don't know how many times you guys have reached out to me to tell me that you're no longer sure, that they've suddenly started saying things that threw you off, that you didn't expect, and they're softer, and they seem to have changed, and they seem to understand. No, what you're experiencing is mind control. I remember I got to talk to Sandra Brown, who wrote the book, Women Who Love Psychopaths, and she said whenever they open their mouths, which is why one of the reasons why I really urge you guys to block them and go no contact, the moment they open their mouths, you're in trouble, because they're going to pull these techniques out, and make it feel like that their goal, their objective is your idea. They're very good at it, like I said, at Inception with Christopher Nolan's movie, of planting an idea inside you and making you think that it's your own idea. And this is very dangerous. You don't realize that it's happening when it's happening, which is what's so toxic about this. Because here's the thing, guys. When that happens to you, you are, at that moment, you're not showing loyalty to this person, you're being programmed by them. And this is the same thing that happens with high pressure sales, with cults. It's the same type of technique. It's the same type of technique in abusive relationship the high pressure salesmen are using and that cult leaders are using. It makes you think that you have real choice when they've already decided what the end goal is. And you know what? They don't even have to force your hand. You're offering it willingly because they've moved you into that direction without you even realizing that it's happened. So, okay, now, so I want you to watch for that. I really want, please let me know. Leave me in the comment section, maybe examples where you see the pattern interruption where that person said something really surprising, like you asked a question and they didn't answer it. They said something weird. Or when you noted it was out of character, or when they kept repeating the same thing over and over as if to suggest that this is the truth, like in my story about honesty, he kept suggesting about honesty. I'd love to hear about that. And I'd also love to hear what you're doing to break out of that so that you can become more resistant to mind control. Okay, so let's talk about how to resist mind control. First of all, you need, and you've been hearing this a lot because a lot of us on these social media platforms have been saying this, but I want you to, the best thing you can do is name the pattern, not just the behavior, but name the pattern. Okay, so here's an example. It just happened to me recently. I picked up on it and I was able to name the pattern, and once I named the pattern, I broke free from it. So I met somebody through gaming. This is somebody I'd been gaming with, and this person, I knew that they were in a financial straits. I knew they had financial difficulty. And as I was starting to get this person to know this person a little bit better, they shared that they had suffered some losses. Some things happened in their life, like they struggled to pay the internet, and they lost internet for a few days. Next thing I know, they go silent for a day or two, and I ask, how are you doing? And they say, oh, my phone dropped, and it's really hard to type on it. And I started to feel really guilty, like maybe I should offer to buy this person a new phone. I mean, I could afford that. It wouldn't hurt me too bad. Maybe to be kind, I should do that. And then I realized something. This person has been dropping hints about their financial difficulty over and over and over. And that what was happening was, because of the creation of guilt and confusion in me, and like somehow I was being bad for not helping, it hit me that this was called dry begging. Have you guys ever heard of dry begging? It's when somebody suggests something, like my ex used to do that. He used to drag me into the Rolex watch shop and look at his favorite watch and say, I'm not expecting you to buy that, and then walk out. Why then did we walk in? And by the way, no, I'm not buying. I never fell for it. I always thought it was stupid. It's like, I'm not buying you a $10,000 watch. But dry begging is a way to drop hints in front of you, make you feel bad for not helping this person out. And then if you do step in and help them out and then they don't show enough appreciation or recognize it, then they can say, well, I never asked you for that. You totally did that all on your own. But what they did was they manipulated you into that direction. So I recognized the pattern and I said to myself, this person is dry begging. I don't need to feel guilty. He's trying to create guilt in me for his difficulty around the decisions that he made. And by the way, he's able to buy video games. That's really interesting. He certainly should be able to buy a new phone. So start to notice the pattern, not just the behavior, but pattern. And then instead, like, here's an example. Instead of saying, he lied to me, say, you know what? He's disrupting my balance and making me doubt myself. Do you see how that shifts the focus? He lied to me. No, now you're saying the pattern is he's disrupting my emotional balance and he's creating doubt in me. So that's the first thing. Name the pattern, not just the behavior. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to rebuild your inner reference point. So what happens is this person's trying to align you to their will. They have an objective. They have a goalpost, and they're trying to gain that with you. Maybe it is to convince you to stay. Maybe it is for you to get into a relationship with them. Maybe it is, whatever it is, they have a reference point, they have a goal, and they're trying to get you to replace yours with theirs. I think the easiest one to talk about is somebody who wants you to stay when you don't want to stay because you know it's very abusive. I want you to realign, rebuild your inner reference point. So maybe journal your instincts. What are you feeling inside? What's happening to you? How are you feeling? And then track how you feel before you think. Track how you feel before you think. Like with this person, I felt really, really guilty, like I was doing something wrong. Like, how was I doing anything wrong for not fixing his life for him? By the way, this guy is not trying to fix my life. And then you ask yourself, what do I know that I don't need them to agree to? What do I know without needing them to agree to it? So for example, if you know that your partner is very abusive, you know this person has betrayed you and cheated on you, you don't need them to agree with you that it's over. It's just over. But how many times do we end up trying to convince this person to come in alignment with us for us to feel like we're okay? Like, you know, we're not doing well and I think it's best that we split. Why do we care what they think? This person's not been kind to you. They've been treating you like an enemy. You don't need their buy-in. So journal your instincts, track how it makes you feel, and then ask yourself, what do I know that I don't need them to agree to? And sometimes in these situations, we need some separation. We need some space. That's what I did in this relationship with this guy that I was talking to who was dropping hints about needing a new phone. I just stepped back. I went quiet and I started processing what was happening. Why am I feeling guilty about somebody else's life decisions? I don't know this person. I don't know their priorities. By the way, they have a couple dogs. So he seems to be able to afford dogs and he's afforded video games. Why am I feeling guilty that he dropped his phone? So the separation for me gave me enough time to start to detangle all the emotional, the confusion, the guilt that I felt. So I got some more logic, more clarity, so that then I could figure out really what I thought and felt. Because here's the thing, time and space are enemies of mind control. Time and space are enemies of mind control. So I want you, here's another thing. Then the second thing, I want you to become more resistant to mind control in the first place. And a good way to become better and more resistant to it is learn to tolerate discomfort without trying to find a resolution. People all the time are going to present problems to you that make you feel bad. You wish it wasn't true for them. Even let's take your ex that you're trying to leave. And they'll suddenly say, well, I need you. And I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And you always keep me so sane and stable. That's not your problem. If you learn to tolerate the discomfort of hearing that without trying to fix it, that's a lot of control. You've taken a lot of control back. That really is breaking the script. So watch out for over-personalizing, over-identifying with other people's problems. Their life story, their difficulties are not your difficulties. You don't need to fix or save other people. They are big grown-ups and they can either do it or not do it. That's really their choice. And you stepping back and just sitting with it and not reacting gives you a whole lot of control in that moment. And then I want you to slow down and breathe and say to yourself, it's okay, I can sit with this emotion, which, by the way, disrupts their pattern, their effort to control you. Then I also want you to start taking up more authority in your own life. I want you to start practicing you showing up for yourself. Like you start to pick the restaurant the next time you go out. I want you to choose the movie. I want you to figure out what you're going to have for dinner instead of asking this person what you're going to have for dinner. I want you to learn to say no without having to offer an explanation. No is a complete sentence. Just say no. I'm not interested. If by learning to make small decisions, you're going to get better and more comfortable at making the big decisions. Because narcissists and psychopaths are super good at sniffing out when we're insecure and that when we defer and give away our authority and our power. So take back your power and your authority and practice it in low investment, easy situations. Then I want you to start watching out for people who create urgency and push you on something, make you feel like there's a rush, like there's a limit or scarcity. Like if you feel there's forced urgency, like you're going to miss out if you don't make this decision right now, that's a moment. When you hear that, that's a moment for you to say, I don't need to act right now. I'm going to step back and pause. Like we're going to close this deal and you're going to miss out on this great discount. No. You know what? There'll be another choice down the road that you can try to take that will be just equally good, if not better for you. Don't allow scarcity or urgency to rush you. And if you meet somebody who's really charming and super smooth, go on alert. Don't say, this person's charming. I want you to say to yourself, this person's charming me. I want you to see it as manipulation. This person's charming me. Why might they be charming me? And when somebody tries to blame you, I want you to shift it and ask yourself the reverse type of question. If this was the shoe was on the other foot, would you attach blame to the situation? And if somebody makes you feel super special, like you're one of the kind, that's usually a sign that this person is love bombing you because something that's too good to be true usually is. So if we get better at not being so pushed and rushed and buttered up and flattered, will become better at resisting mind control. You'll get better at being clear about who you are and what you're about and what you need. And if something doesn't feel right, you'll know that it doesn't feel right because it's not right. So notice that clarity, doesn't come with friction and it doesn't come with confusion. So if you're starting to feel confused or there's a lot of friction, chances are there's something that's wrong about this. So I really appreciate being able to talk to you about this today. And now I'd love to take your questions about maybe you thought of something while we were talking, or maybe you have a situation that's going on in your life that you would like some advice around. And if you're right now trying to heal, you've gotten out of a relationship and you're finding it's really hard to heal. And if you've been on the live in YouTube, you may have already heard about this, but we have next week, I'm starting Healing Strong. It's a 12-week group coaching program. I have a few spots open, and I'd love to work with you and help you process all the outcome that happens when we leave these toxic relationships. And right now, until tomorrow, here I said, don't be persuaded, and I'm going to try to persuade you. But I'm offering 40% off. So if are you interested in doing it and you want to do it for 40% off, use the code 40OFFGROUP. 40 off group, all in one word, smushed together, and you can get Healing Strong for 40% off. And how to find it is go to carriemcavoyphd.com/healing-strong/ and it will take you to the sales page. I would love to work with you. It's a really great program. It's for just a small group of people. So if you're finding yourself really battling rumination, you're still not feeling like you're on your feet, you still find yourself thinking and wondering if you made the right decision, and you're kind of feeling really stupid about what happened, or maybe you have all unresolved anger and you just can't stop fuming about what happened and the unfairness of it, I would really love to work with you in this group coaching program that goes for 12 weeks. And it starts next Thursday, and it goes for an hour and 15 minutes, and it's Thursday afternoons. All right, so questions for me. And for those of you who are on TikTok and really struggling, the reason you're struggling is because the Wi-Fi is lousy here. And if you want a better program, go to YouTube. The strength, I have it in an Ethernet cord, so it's got a better strength. All right, so I'm watching your questions that you may have for me about this topic. By the way, can you see the chat? Because I'm using Restream. I'm using a new program. I'm kind of curious. Does the chat show up for you guys or not? I can see it, but I don't know if you can see it. Okay, questions. Yeah, thank you, Leslie. I love my moderator. Big shout out to Leslie so much for doing this. I really appreciate this. Yeah, so someone was saying scarcity was a way that she got really trapped, that this person would play on the urgency or how many of us have said, you're not going to find anybody like this again. Maybe I should just better put up with it. Well, okay, the truth of the matter is, I don't know if you'll find a good relationship. Nobody can guarantee that, but it doesn't mean that you deserve a bad one. See, that's sort of the fallacy. Oh, you can, but it's really small. That's because I'm trying not to love it. Oh, okay. So this is the other thing is my screen is the opposite. So I always feel like there you go. So now you can see each other's comments and me at the same time. Okay. So you have a friend who makes you go, huh? I'm trying to read that comment. Oh, it disappeared. So if whoever wrote, you have a friend who makes you go, huh? Would you write that question again so I can ask you? All right, someone asked, what is the JADE method? The JADE method is what you do when somebody puts you on the spot and makes you feel really uncomfortable. It's an acronym, and it stands for don't justify your decision, don't attack this person, don't defend, and you don't need to explain. Like I said just a few minutes ago, no is a complete sentence. So when you say, if you decide that you don't want to do something, just say no, and you don't need to say anything else. You've said enough. And if they say why, you just say, because I just don't want to. So yeah, that's what the JADE method is. Oh, I'm glad you can see the comments better. It's really weird because, like I said, it's a mirror image. Actually, it's not a mirror image. So I have to think. It's the opposite direction. It's the opposite direction I'm used to. All right. And there's no Facebook comments. It should be, I would love to see if there's somebody on Facebook, but I don't see anybody there. If anybody's watching from Facebook, say hey, because you guys can see each other's comments, which I really, really love. All right, so other questions for me. TH reunion. What's a TH reunion? I must have missed that. And so nice to see you, Elwin. It's nice to meet you. And GMB, I'm always happy when you're here. And Teresa, you too. And Amanda, I love my regulars. I love seeing you guys on from live to live. It's always a lot of fun to come hang out with you guys. So you have a friend who makes you go, huh? Like they've always misunderstood you. Is that a sign of a neglectful narcissist? Leech, thanks for the work. I can't tell you if you're the person who is a narcissist who does that, but it is a great way to disarm you and make you feel confused. And make you feel like you've got to show up and do sort of more of the emotional labor, which is what I bet you're feeling. I bet you're feeling like it's a lot of hard work when that happens, and that you're having to go to the extra measure to say it all over again. You probably say more than you want to say. Yeah, and it just makes you feel really, really tired. That's a sign of somebody who's doing a lot of hard work. So I would say that's offloading responsibility to you for their issues, which would be, you'd have to think about how comfortable are you with that. Yes, Dr. Carter, by the way, is going to be my first interview with the podcast, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. So less than 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks yesterday, the podcast restarts, and we have an amazing, amazing lineup. And the first one out the gate is Dr. Carter. I just adore him so much. We had a fantastic conversation about emotional maturity. So he talks about how to assess for emotional maturity. And I'd love you to have you join us for that. It's on the 18th, Monday on the 18th of the podcast. So Anita says, my landlord, for whatever reason, spies on me and the purchases I make, and she governs her actions according to my purchases. It's so bizarre, and I have no money to move. That is bizarre. That is very bizarre, that is happening to you. And it makes me wonder, what is this person's gains? Do you have some ideas what she's getting for this? I think it is a very strange thing, and I bet she makes you very self-conscious, unfortunately. Oh, so Team Healthy is following me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love Dr. Carter's. So he stopped his new content for his channel. Interesting. Huh. Yeah. So does he say why? Has he talked about why he's stopping new content? I could tell, from this Facebook. There's Maria. Thank you so much. I do see you, Maria. I'm thrilled that you're here. Yeah, when we talked, he did mention that he may be that he may be doing a little less work. And the guy has been doing it for a while. Isn't it amazing how long he's been doing this? And it's such wisdom. I really, really appreciate his wisdom. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad, Christine, that you. And hey, Christine, so good to see you. I did. I was he interviewed me first. That's how I met him and got to know him. Can you believe I didn't know who he was before that? Yeah, he's retiring. That's what he told me. He actually told me when I met with him, he's gonna be retiring. He said, come December, if I'm still working, then I changed my mind, but I'm thinking about retiring. So he did tell me when I saw him this year. So I wondered, now you guys know, I wasn't, it was between him and me, we're gonna talk about it, but now apparently he has come out and told everybody he's retiring. Oh, I'm very grateful for you too, Barb. And I'm grateful that you find professionals on this that do talk about this. So my narcissistic abuse is a church pastor, and is it applicable to your group? Absolutely. The group for Healing Strong is not specific to romantic relationships. It's for anybody who's getting out of a relationship that's been toxic. I've had people work on a friend relationship that was bad. I've had those join that because of a parent or a sibling that they're really struggling with. So it could be a work situation that you're trying to manage and deal with and heal from. So anything that's related to you feeling resolution, finding some peace, taking back control over your life. If you're really struggling with that, then the Healing Strong is perfect for you. So he's starting to say farewell in his videos. Wow, that's it's like a moment, you know what I'm saying? It's 40 years. Yeah, 8 years on YouTube. When I listened to his interview, because we're getting ready to publish it, you can tell he's tiring. I could feel it and hear it in his voice that he's tiring. So we're gonna miss him. But I'd welcome Team Healthy. If anybody of his team would love to come over here, I would love to be there. I'm going to be here. I'm not retiring anytime soon. Yeah, so it says it makes you very self-conscious. Your landlord's making you self-conscious. You don't know what she thinks she's going to gain by doing this, but you honestly can't you can't figure it out. You can't get into her mind. But you think she's bipolar, okay. So here's some guesses, Anita. This is guesses, okay? I don't know the woman. I can't diagnose her. She may be struggling with some paranoia, and she may be a bit delusional in her thinking, and she's created a weird story about you that makes her suspicious or uncomfortable about you. So that's why she may be watching you, is because of this odd narrative that she's told herself about you. I know you said you can't move, but I'm going to suggest that you try to prepare to move. If that's the case, if I'm right, then I think this is may not be a very safe situation for you. So I would suggest that you consider your options. Because if you do find out she has a mental health condition that she's battling and she's doing this odd behavior, then that suggests that this is a really weird situation. So we need a Carrie Care team. Well, there you go, Barbara. You can start it today. Carrie Care's team. Yeah, in fact, my nickname with my sisters was Care. Sometimes they would just shorten Carrie and call me Care. And I'll rewatch his last 4 videos where he's mentioned it. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. But he's my first up interview. I've also, by the way, have you guys heard of Dr. Leslie Dobson? Dr. Dobson, I don't know if she has a podcast. I don't know if she's, Bera. I'm sorry. Yeah, Bera. I called you Barbara, but it's Bera. Sorry about that. Yeah, she's definitely paranoid and delusional. See, yeah, Anita, I think that you're onto something. I think you do need to think about what your options are. But Dr. Leslie Dobson, if you guys aren't following her, she has a podcast called Intentionally Disturbing, and she's a forensic psychologist who's had a lot of experience with psychopaths. And I just interviewed her, so she'll be on the podcast this year. I've got an amazing lineup. Dr. Nadine Macaluso is another one. And by the way, I also have fan mail. So starting a week from Thursday, 2 weeks from Thursday, I'm going to be posting a short second segment, about 5 to 10 minutes long, with an answer to your question. And it will be done anonymously. So if you fill out a questionnaire, and I have a survey now that takes the questions. If you fill out a questionnaire, and then at that moment, when I answer it, I'm going to just say, New York from New York, New York, New York, ask this. from YouTube or whatever. That way you know that it's you and where I got the question from, but I'm not going to announce your name. So I really would love to have you guys submit your questions that you would love to have me answer on air. That would be amazing. Yeah. My ex told his mistress that he loved her in the middle of an argument, and 2 months in, and I knew the game he was playing. Yeah, isn't it wild how they'll do that? They'll use these things as a way to, see, he was manipulating her. He probably threw her off. Did you see the pattern disruption? That's a great example, by the way, Nikki. He used pattern disruption as a way to throw her off and to disarm her so that she now is in doubt and confusion. Yeah, Virginia is telling Anita, get legally clear on your rights to give you peace of mind, and AI can help. That is true. Oh, you use Grok 3. I've never used Grok 3. I use ChatGPT and Claude a lot. Yeah, they're very, very helpful. They're not always totally accurate about everything. I sometimes find, ask multiple AIs, you can get better answers when you kind of like play them against each other. Yeah, Dr. Salerno is another interview that I have a long interview with Dr. Salerno this year for this fall. So he's back as well. Who else is? Oh, Bill Eddy. I had a wonderful another interview with Bill Eddy. And who else was on that was a repeat that was just really fabulous? Probably about somebody new that you guys may not know is Shelly Pumphrys. She's a co-host of my Toxic Free Relationship Club. She is has wrote a book called Hindsight is 2020. No, I'm sorry, Insights 2020. She's amazing. She talks a lot about the personality characteristics and traits of a narcissistic abuse survivor. So that was another kind of early podcast. They're all, by the way, taped. I'm taping all the way through into February now, so that's why I know the lineup so well. So I'm so excited, by the way. And my new website, everything for the podcast is now going to be housed on CarrieMcAvoyPhD.com. So you can go to that site and find my books. You'll be able to find the podcast and what's happening. I'm actually going to post who the next guest is and what they're talking about to give you kind of a sense of what's coming up. I'll tell you what the fan mail question is of the week that I'm going to be answering. So this is going to be just all sorts of information on my website. It's being updated right now. So my ex asked me, as our divorce was nearly finalized, what I'd say if someone asked me if he loved me. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, talk about a way to disarm you. And then Julie said he certainly had earned a fantastic vacation. He's a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, he has. And Bill Eddy is fantastic, guys. I love Bill Eddy very, very much. And I love Salerno, too, very much. Very amazing guys. You wish you could share what on Facebook? You can share this video on Facebook, I think. By the way, it's on Facebook. You could actually go to Facebook and find today's video right there. It will be there right there. Yeah, so I'm in Mexico. So if anybody, like I said, read the book Love You More, and you read the part about where I'm stalking across town, and I'm heading to Phoenix, Arizona to see a friend, and I'm feeling totally crazy, and I wonder if there's a second phone in the basement. This is the place where I was living at that time. We were here. And he would leave his phone on the table behind me. See that table behind me? Leave his phone and go out and do whatever, something crazy. And I was like feeling so crazy and wondering what he was up to. I thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do love psychology very much. I find it fascinating. And I don't think I'll ever get bored of this topic because there's so much to say about it. It's just a whole lot. Which, speaking of that, because we're coming up at the end of the hour, next week we're going to talk about how to know if you're really healing. So next week we'll be talking how to know if you're really healing. So if you're trying to heal and you're struggling, you're wondering, why do I feel the way that I'm feeling, that I want you to know that we're going to talk about signs of it. And I actually have a quiz. I'm going to give you guys a quiz next week to help you figure out if you're on the right track. And if you really would like help with healing, please consider signing up for Healing Strong. Like I said, the discounts is on until the 7th. Today is the 5th. So you have 2 days to think about it, because I don't want to rush you. But 2 days to think about it. You can get it for 40% off with a coupon code 40OFFGROUP. The coupon code is 40OFFGROUP. Hey guys, thank you so much. I just missed you, and I'd been gone 2 weeks ago, and I didn't want to be gone again, so I thought I'll go ahead and stream from Mexico, knowing that it's not a great connection for everybody, but I would go ahead and try. And I also knew this is a really powerful topic. We don't talk enough about mind control. So for those of you who joined late and may have missed it, please go back to the beginning of today. You can hear about how mind control happens, the fact that you are being manipulated against your will without your consent by someone who's very good at this and understands the process by which to move you into a decision that makes you think it's your decision when it's really been implanted in you. I know that sounds crazy, but they're very, very good at that. And I even read a little bit of my story to show you how he did it with me. And by the way, I did go and show him what I looked like without my wig when I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do that. The first time I'd ever done it in my life, I was terrified. I felt very violated by the experience. And it was because he forced my hand. And when, it is recorded. It is, Healing Strong is recorded. So yes, if you're in the UK, and by the way, it will be at a time that you can attend. If you're in the UK, you will be 6 hours ahead, and that means it'll be 9 o'clock your time. It's at 9 o'clock your time. Carrie Cares team. Oh, you guys, you're the best. Thank you so much for that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. But yeah, come back, OB, and have a question. And by the way, if you're a subscriber, in 2 weeks, the podcast extras restart. You guys, I know you've been hanging with me all summer, and I almost forgot. Thank you so much. OB, you reminded me. Your gift, for those who subscribe, there's a free gift that is now listed in the membership perk. There is a gift for you guys. If you go to the membership perk on YouTube, there's a downloadable workbook from me to you for being my subscriber over the summer and staying with me while the podcast extras were on hiatus. So thank you so much for that. Please go pick your gifts up for those of you who are my subscribers. And thank you so much, guys. You've been really amazing. You know how much I love you. You guys take care. Next week I'll be home. We'll talk about healing. And Team Carrie Cares. I love that.